Atlanta streets have long been plagued by a brutal code of silence. Snitches get stitches isn't just a saying, it's practically a law in the city's gangland culture. In recent years, several gruesome murders in Atlanta have been directly tied to fears of snitching. Victims have been beaten, tortured, and executed merely for being suspected of cooperating with authorities. Even alleged gang members have ordered hits on witnesses who spoke up. As one FBI agent in Atlanta put it, some gang members are willing to violently assault and kill people for the smallest perceived sign of disrespect, and nothing is seen as a greater disrespect than talking to the police. This video delves into Atlanta's most shocking modern cases of people killed for snitching. Each story is a sobering tale of loyalty, betrayal, and the deadly consequences of breaking the code of silence. Before we get started on this video, the no snitching rule. 17, a 17-year-old Atlanta boy learned just how deadly the no snitching rule could be. He was a low-level member of the 1 in 35 Pirates street gang. One night outside a nightclub in Brookhaven, a fight erupted between a Pirates member and a rival gang member. Gang leader Maurice Savage Duze Kent opened fire into the crowd, wounding 2 people. Kent fled the scene but was quickly arrested, and as he sat in custody, paranoia set in. He heard that a fellow gang member, this 17-year-old kid, might have talked to police about the shooting. In Kent's eyes, that was the ultimate betrayal. Rather than risk a snitch in their ranks, Kent and his cohort decided to make a
That nigga crazy as fuck. So he had voices that he thought
curling example of the team. Just 2 days after the nightclub incident, Pirates gang members lured the 17-year-old to a rural area in Bartow County under false pretenses. There, on a lonely back road, they
Hold on, I know I'm pausing, but look, how y'all ever found it crazy? Like, every time it's like a mug shot of people or whatever, or it's an indictment, whatever the case may be, it's always a girl. It's going to always be a female face right there again. I'd be like, what? Why is always a female face?
Bartow County under false pretenses. There, on a lonely back road, they executed him execution style, shooting him to death with the very same gun Ken had used at the club. They dumped the boy's body on the roadside and later tossed the firearm into Lake Allatoona in an effort to hide the evidence. It was a cold-blooded hit on one of their own, all because Ken suspected him of cooperating with law enforcement. Federal prosecutors later revealed the chilling details. The murder was a premeditated snitch execution carried out to ensure the gang's silence. Miraculously, investigators recovered the submerged gun from the lake, tying it to both the Brookhaven shooting and the teen's killing. By 2022, 8 members of the 135 Pirates gang, including Maurice Kent and even his twin brother, had been convicted for their roles in this heinous conspiracy. Kent, 32 years old, was found guilty on racketeering and murder charges and sentenced to 40 years.
Okay, let me tell you something about this Atlanta shit. So look, he doing the older guys. Some of these shit I'm not gonna know. So I can't say if he lying or not.
In prison, his co-defendants received heavy sentences ranging from 7 years to life terms for the teenager's execution. Damn. The members of the 135th Street Pirates gang were willing to violently assault and kill people for the smallest perceived sign of disrespect, said Kerry Farley, the FBI's Atlanta special agent in charge. In this case, that disrespect was the mere possibility of snitching. A teenage gang member was murdered by his own gang simply because he was suspected of talking. A stark warning to anyone else who might be tempted to break the code of silence. 1 year earlier, Atlanta witnessed a murder so savage that prosecutors called it the most horrific death in recent memory.
Most vicious murder in recent history here locally. 8 gang members brutally beat, tortured, and killed a man once they found out he spoke with police.
Prosecutors are about to take some of those suspects to court. Ryan Kruger got exclusive access to the case.
Some breaking news in Atlanta right now.
On a fall day 3 years ago,
Police just discovered a man's body in the trunk of a car.
At the Hamilton E. Holmes MARTA station, an unimaginably gruesome discovery is made in the trunk of this car.
This was one of the most brutal killings or murders that we had ever seen.
Since then, 8 men have been arrested. 5 are already serving life in prison, with another trial coming soon. Prosecutors tell me the defendants have not shown any remorse.
The victim was 33-year-old Christopher Dean, and his alleged crime was being a police informant. Dean had once helped law enforcement in California, a fact that would seal his fate after he moved to Georgia. In the fall of 2016, a crew of local gang members learned of Dean's past cooperation with police. They decided to send a message in the most gruesome way imaginable. On October 17, 2016, Gangsta Disciples member Christopher Lockett invited Dean to a house in Atlanta under the guise of a drug deal. Dean walked in expecting to do business. Instead, he was ambushed by Lockett and 4 accomplices, Xavier Gibson.
Bro. If you know you snitch, you going inside, you got invited to their house, nothing but black. Come on, bro. You didn't think nothing was gonna happen, bro. You thought you was gonna be good. You thought you was gonna do what you finna do and get the fuck on. No, you ain't. They finna kill your ass, bro. Is you cool? Like, come on, bro. Y'all gotta have, okay, y'all might not be from the streets with it, but bro, you gotta have a little street smarts or something.
Quatez Clark, Joshua Rooks, and Jasper Green, all members of the Gangsta Disciples. What followed was pure torture. The gang beat Dean mercilessly for over an hour with a 2x4 plank and a crowbar. They sodomized him both with a foreign object and even sexually, and then shot him twice execution style in the back of the head. Dean's skull was depressed from the beating and his body was already starting to decompose by the time the night was over. The perpetrators weren't done. They stuffed Christopher Dean's lifeless body into the trunk of a Toyota Camry and abandoned the car at the H.E. Holmes Martyr train station in southwest Atlanta. Later, 2 other men were paid to try to clean up the crime scene and dispose of the body, but even they were so horrified by the corpse's condition that they fled, leaving the body in the trunk. When police discovered the car, they uncovered a crime that Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard described in graphic detail: a brutal beating, sodomy with a wooden or metal object, and shooting of the victim to the back of the head. Truly a message killing aimed at anyone who might inform. Howard concluded that this murder represents the most horrific death in our county in recent history, and indeed, the killer's own words.
And then you gonna trust a house like this? Come on, bro.
It's the most horrific death in our county in recent history, and indeed.
You gonna go to a house like this by yourself, thinking you're gonna do business, bro? If I seen a house look like this again, I'm not going. What the fuck I look like going to a house looking like this? Y'all niggas be tripping.
The killer's own words revealed their motive. According to prosecutors, the gang's goal in torturing Dean was to show other gang members that working as a police witness would not be tolerated. In other words, this was retaliation and intimidation, a brutal public service announcement to their underworld: don't snitch or else. Dean suffered unimaginably so that the gang could make an example of him. Justice eventually caught up with the perpetrators. In April 2019, 5 Gangsta Disciples members were convicted of Christopher Dean's murder and related charges. Lockett, Gibson, Clark, Rooks, and Green, all in their 20s or 30s, were found guilty of murder, aggravated assault, and participation in criminal street gang activity, among other felonies. Each of the 5 received life in prison, most without the possibility of parole. A 6th man, Shakur Wright, pleaded guilty in 2020 to Dean's murder and another and got 2 life sentences plus 40 years. 2 more accomplices, Orlando Gibson and Lamar Almond, were later charged for helping cover up the crime. Gibson took a plea deal to 15 years in prison for his role in the aftermath. The courtroom revelations were jaw-dropping. Forensic evidence even found seminal fluid in Dean's body, confirming the horrific sexual torture he endured. It is a case that still haunts Atlanta, a stark reminder of how far gang members will go to enforce the no snitching code. Not all snitching tragedies in Atlanta involve gang veterans. Sometimes, even vulnerable teenagers fall victim to the code. Danella Franks was just 17 years old and drifting through a
Don't tell me y'all whacked a girl, bro.
troubled life. A runaway from a group home in Columbus, Georgia, she had fallen in with a bad crowd on the streets of Atlanta. In September 2017, Danella got involved in a harebrained scheme with a group of young friends. They plotted to lure a food delivery driver to a location and rob him. The robbery went badly. The delivery man was armed. Shots were fired and both the driver and one of the teen robbers were wounded. In the chaos, in the immediate aftermath, Danetta had a change of heart. Horrified by what happened, she began texting her family that she wanted to turn herself in to the police. It was a crisis of conscience for the 17-year-old girl. She no longer wanted any part of this crime and was ready to snitch on her accomplices. Unfortunately, that decision...
Hold on, nah, man, don't worry about it though. Nita, I try helping you. I know it's not your fault, but it's mine. But if I get charged, then I just do hard rock. What was going on?
And would prove fatal. One of the other teen robbers, 19-year-old Eddie Bird, caught wind that Donetta was planning to go to the authority. Bird and the others knew that if she talked, they'd all be in serious trouble. As Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis later explained, they were scared that she was going to snitch on them. Determined to keep her silent, Eddie Bird decided to eliminate the problem. He found Donetta before she could reach the police. In a ruthless act of violence, Bird shot the teenage girl point blank in the face, as well as multiple times elsewhere on her body. It was essentially an execution to cover up the robbery. Neighbors later found Donetta Frank's body lying in the middle of Atlanta Street on September 21, 2017. She had been left to die on the pavement, shot in the face for trying to do the right thing.
Damn! In the face on the pavement.
Miss Franks had several different gunshot wounds, noted Deputy DA Vincent Fawcett, underscoring the brutality of the murder. Even hardened prosecutors seemed shaken up. Willis called it a very brutal murder of a young girl. What's especially tragic is that killing Donetta didn't even save the culprits from justice. Eddie Bird was caught and prosecuted for her murder. Initially, he was convicted on charges related to the botched robbery.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell y'all something right here to all the niggas, bro. If you know that person is going to snitch or is going to try to snitch, don't have them with you when you finna do your dirty work, gang. Do it by yourself. Like, you bringing a girl on the drill, whatever the fuck you finna do, and you thinking she's not finna tell on you when y'all get caught? You think she's not gonna tell on you? You think she gonna hold it down like a real nigga, gang? Come on, bro. Like, y'all gotta be smarter than what y'all doing, bro. Come on, man. Like, what?
And got 20 years in prison. But once witnesses came forward about Donetta's killing, Bird was also found guilty of her murder in 2024. He has now been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 5 extra years. Another accomplice in the robbery, a 17-year-old male, was charged as well. He received 17 years for the robbery and was accused in Donetta's murder, though a jury ultimately acquitted him of the killing. Bird, however, could not escape the evidence against him. He tried to silence a potential snitch, but all he accomplished was a senseless loss of life. In the end, Donetta Frank's conscience and intent to confess did not spare her, and the code of silence claimed yet another life. Her grieving brother, a U.S. Army service member, remembered Donetta as a bright presence. "She always made me laugh. We always joked together," he said, tearing up at how her life was cut short. The bitter irony is hard to ignore. A teenage girl wanted to come clean, and for that she was murdered, proving that on Atlanta streets, even a hint of snitching can be a death warrant. These cases may be among the most notorious in recent Atlanta history, but they are far from isolated incidents. The no snitching culture remains deeply ingrained, continuing to influence criminal behavior in the city. In high-profile trials and everyday crimes alike, suspects often go to extreme lengths to intimidate or eliminate witnesses. For example, in a 2018 Atlanta murder case, a 17-year-old gang member named Jaden Myrick, on trial for killing a man outside a country club wedding, was recorded from jail ordering hits on witnesses who had identified him as the shooter. He openly admitted on the stand that he had threatened at least 5 different witnesses for snitching on him. A bold attempt to obstruct justice that shows how normalized retaliating against witnesses has become. Merrick was ultimately convicted of that murder, despite his efforts to silence those who spoke against him.
A gang member accused of killing a father outside a wedding is admitting he ordered hits on witnesses, but he insists he did not commit the murder. The brother of the victim identified Jaden Myrick as the killer, but Myrick once again said he did not do it.
Prosecutor Christopher Sperry showed the jury the bullet that killed 34-year-old Christian Broder back in July 2018. Sperry said Jaden Myrick made the choice to fire that bullet into Broder as he left a wedding and was waiting on an Uber with friends and family.
Because of his choices, we are here today.
Myrick, then 17, faces more than a dozen charges, including felony murder, aggravated assault, gang activity, and armed robbery.
Can you pick him out? Here.
Broder's brother and a woman with the group that night,
person on the far left,
pointed to a photo of Myrick and said he was the person who robbed them and shot Christian Broder. But Myrick took the stand in his own defense and said he was nowhere near the Capital City Country Club that night.
In the nighttime, I was at Michelle.
But 2 of his co-defendants said they were with him when he shot Broder. Myrick said they were trying to frame him, and his attorney pointed to another person as the shooter.
And they would have you believe that this could not be the man that did it.
Prosecutors said several witnesses identified Myrick as the shooter, and Myrick, an admitted gang member, was recorded ordering hits on some of them for snitching.
So that's 5 different witnesses that you have threatened harm to.
Even in ongoing gang prosecutions, rumors swirl about possible retribution against informants. In June 2024, an associate of a well-known Atlanta rappers crew was gunned down in Southwest Atlanta, and internet gossip immediately wondered if it was payback for someone cooperating in a major RICO trial. Police provided no confirmation of any link, but the mere fact that such speculation took off on social media underscores the public's awareness of the Stop Snitching code. Whether on the streets or online, the message is the same. In certain circles, helping the authorities is the ultimate betrayal, and it can cost you your life. Atlanta authorities recognize this dangerous mindset and have tried to combat it. Prosecutors frequently praise the brave witnesses who defy threats and come forward. Law enforcement task forces have been formed to protect witnesses and crack down on gang leaders who order violence. Yet as these cases illustrate, the shadow of snitching still looms large. The fear of being labeled a snitch often silences community members who might otherwise cooperate in solving crime. And for those who do speak up or are merely suspected of it, the consequences can be lethal. From a teenage gang member executed by his crew, to an ex-informant savagely tortured, to a young girl killed by her friend. Each story is